And here is the Writer's Almanac for Tuesday. It's the 22nd of October, 2013. It was on this date, 1938, Chester Carlson produced the first electrophotographic image, paving the way for the invention of the Xerox machine. Up until then, you needed to use carbon paper and retype the documents to make copies. He did this in Queens, New York, in a makeshift lab behind his mother-in-law's beauty parlor. The early copiers were slow and complicated. You had to follow 14 steps. It took nearly a minute to make a single copy, and you could only make about a dozen copies from one exposure. The first Xerox copiers did not come on the market for about 20 years, 1959. It's the 51st anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis today. 1962, President Kennedy had gotten photographs from U-2 spy planes over Cuba that showed the Soviet Union installing missiles and launch sites there. And so he placed Cuba under what he called a naval quarantine until the Soviets removed them. Some of the nation's B-52s went in the air that night, ready to strike the Soviet Union, and for a few days the world seemed to be on the brink of nuclear war until, on October 28th, Premier Nikita Khrushchev withdrew the missiles. It was on this day, 1883, the Metropolitan Opera House opened in New York City with a performance of Gounod's Faust. There already was an opera house in New York, the Academy of Music, down near Union Square. It was a gathering place for high society, where the rich and privileged sat in the opera boxes and watched each other as they watched the opera itself. But there were only 18 boxes at the Academy of Music, and in the 1870s there was a whole generation of nouveau riche, and they wanted a place to display themselves in their finery, and so they built their own opera house with more than 100 box seats. Here's a poem for today, a poem by Dana Gioia entitled The Lost Garden. If ever we see those gardens again, the summer will be gone, at least our summer. Some other mockingbird will concertize among the mulberries, and other vines will climb the high brick wall to disappear. How many footpaths crossed the old estate, the gracious acreage of a grander age, so many trees to kiss or argue under, and greenery enough for any mood. What pleasure to be sad in such surroundings, at least in retrospect, for even sorrow seems bearable when studied at a distance, and if we speak of private suffering, the pain becomes part of a well-turned tale, describing someone else who shares our name. Still, thinking of you, I sometimes play a game. What if we had walked a different path one day? Would some small incident have nudged us elsewhere, the way a pebble tossed into a brook might change the course 100 miles downstream? The trick is making memory a blessing, to learn by loss the cool subtraction of desire, of wanting nothing more than what has been, to know the past forever lost, yet seeing behind the wall a garden still in blossom. The Lost Garden by Dana Gioia, from Interrogations at Noon, published by Grey Wolf Press, and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac, supported by Lumosity. Lumosity.com's daily online workouts are designed to improve memory and attention, and are dedicated to helping people feel sharper, think faster, and remember more. More at Lumosity.com. Produced by Joy Biles, with assistance by Teresa Burgess. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.
This is the Composer's Datebook for October 22nd. I'm John Zeck. On today's date in 1942, Bruno Walter conducted the New York Philharmonic in the first performance of this music, the Second Symphony of the American composer John Alden Carpenter. Like Charles Ives before him, Carpenter led a double life as a composer and a successful businessman. He was born into a wealthy family, and from 1906 until his retirement in 1936, served as vice president of George B. Carpenter and Company, his father's railroad and ship supply company. He studied music at home and abroad, and even took composition lessons from Sir Edward Elgar. In 1914, Carpenter scored a national success with his first big orchestral work, a whimsical symphonic suite titled Adventures in a Perambulator. And in 1921 wrote a very popular jazz-inspired ballet titled Crazy Cat, based on a popular newspaper comic strip of the day. By the 1940s, Carpenter's works were being performed by America's leading orchestras and famous maestros like Bruno Walter and Fritz Reiner. To celebrate his 75th birthday, the newly formed National Arts Foundation promoted performances of his music in the U.S., Australia, and Europe. But in the decades following his death in 1951, much of Carpenter's work has been forgotten. The first ever recording of his Symphony No. 2 was released by Naxos of America in 2001, 59 years after the work's 1942 premiere. For more on composers and their many lives, go to our website, composersdatebook.org. Composer's Datebook is produced by APM, American Public Media, and the American Composers Forum, reminding you that all music was once new.
Welcome back to Studio 4 on this Tuesday, the 22nd day of October 2013. And I'll have Today in History for you in just a moment as we go way, way, way back. As a matter of fact, I don't think we've ever gone that far back in time before. But this DeLorean can do it, just as long as I can get it up to 88 miles per hour. And don't always need roads either. Right now, though, what do you say we take a look at celebrity birthdays?
Damn it, Jim, what the hell's the matter with you? Other people have birthdays. Why are we treating yours like a funeral?
Bones, I don't want to be lectured.
Ooh, yeah. Very, very many happy reasons.
And take a look at celebrity birthdays today, but before I do so, wish to remind you that if you're celebrating your birthday today, happy birthday. And you share your birthday with these famous people. They include one of my favorite actors and comedians, Christopher Lloyd. Of course, he played Doc Brown in the Back to the Future trilogies. Also played Commander Krug in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, which really threw me for a loop. Incidentally, you want to see a very young John Larroquette in really weird prosthetic makeup, check out Star Trek III. He played Maltz, a Klingon warrior in Star Trek III. But Christopher Lloyd is 75 today, also famous in Taxi and movies like Clue. Guy is a brilliant comedian, and as you can tell, I'm a Christopher Lloyd fan. Other actors celebrating birthdays today, other famous people, includes Jeff Goldblum of Jurassic Park, Law & Order Criminal Intent. Get this, he is 61. I had no idea he was that old. I thought he was still in his mid to late 50s, but nevertheless, Jeff Goldblum is 61 today. Jesse Tyler Ferguson plays Mitchell Pritchett on Modern Family. He is 38 today. And those are celebrity birthdays for this, see, what day is it? Tuesday. Almost said Wednesday. Well, let's go back in time, shall we? All right, and I have room for one passenger in the time machine. Yes, I know it's a DeLorean, but just humor me, okay? So let's get in the car. Put the key in the ignition, turn on the time circuits. And away we go. On this date in 4004 BC, that's right. October 22nd, 4004 BC, that's before coffee. According to Archbishop James Ussher of Armagh, the world was created at 6 p.m. on this date, 4004 BC. Right. He lived from 1581 to 1656 and was an archbishop in the Church of Ireland and a scholar. Oh yeah, did he take into account daylight saving time when he said the world started at 6 p.m.? I always pictured the world starting at 5 a.m., but that's because I'm not a morning person. And yet I'm doing a morning show. Oh, the ironies abound. Well, still to come on the program, we'll have popular tweets of the day, the song of the day, as well as News of the Weird in a few minutes after the CBS World News Roundup. Right now, though, let's switch it over to APM right after Across Our Wide Missouri on this edition of First Cup.
Of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba.
October 22nd, 1962. Cold War superpowers reached the brink of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. President John F. Kennedy announces an air and naval blockade of Cuba after Soviet missile bases are discovered on the island.
The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere.
The crisis ends when Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev agrees to remove the missiles while Kennedy pledges the U.S. won't invade Cuba. 1979. The United States allows the deposed Shah of Iran to travel to New York for medical treatment. Weeks later, a mob seizes the U.S. Embassy in Iran's capital, Tehran, taking dozens of Americans hostage for 444 days. 1931. Federal agents gunned down Charles Pretty Boy Floyd, the Great Depression-era bank robber, at a farm in East Liverpool, Ohio. 2002. A bus driver shot to death in Maryland is the final victim in the Washington, D.C. area sniper case. Days later, John Muhammad and Lee Malvo are caught in connection with the string of deadly shootings. And 1973. Pablo Casals, the Spanish-born cellist, conductor, and composer, dies in Puerto Rico. He was 96. Today in history, October 22nd. Mike Gracia, The Associated Press.
This is Across Our Wide Missouri with Bob Pretty.
He's a short, dapper fellow, clad in a dark suit, vest, top hat, spats, carries a cane, is almost always puffing on a cigar. His wife is a homely old bag, overflowing with snobbery. He would just as soon play cards with the boys at the corner bar and have a plate of corned beef and cabbage. She thinks they should mix with the elite. After all, they are the elite now, since they won the sweepstakes. He was a mason before they hit it rich, and she was a washerwoman. But money changed all of that and made them one of the world's best-known couples. We'll tell their story in a minute.
Hi, friends. Did you miss a recent episode of First Cup? Or maybe you'd like to hear one or more of my old shows again? Then may I suggest a couple of convenient ways you could go back in time and hear an old show again. Check me out on Stitcher by either downloading the app from the opening page of my website, tinyurl.com/Gunther's House, on your PC, Mac, Linux, or tablet computer, or on your smartphone at tinyurl.com/GuntherMobile. That's good on your Android, iOS, or Windows phone. Also, you can check out this app by going to your phone's online store, or download the Spreaker app by going to your phone's online store as well.
They've been around since 1913, entertaining people throughout the world. Their names are Maggie and Jiggs. They're comic strip personalities created by George McManus, a fellow who knew what it was like to win the sweepstakes. He was just an artist for the old St. Louis Republic newspaper when a bootblack one day gave him a tip on a horse named Hamburg Bell. He bet $100 and he won, and the odds were 30-1. He decided he would take his money and go to New York. George McManus achieved fame there as the creator of one of the world's most enduring and best-known comic strips, Bringing Up Father. By the time he died in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 70, he'd drawn more than 80,000 cartoons. He was already an artist when